In this tutorial we're going to create this parchment paper that you can see on the screen here. The technique we're going to use is going to start with an existing model that was created in another tutorial. In that example we actually created a scroll. We're going to open that file, delete the ends from that scroll and use the middle part, the piece of paper, as the beginning for this example. We're going to take that paper, we're going to split it using some vectors that we're going to sketch. We're going to add a rounded shape to give the effect of the folds rolling up and round, and then we're going to take each of those components, group them together and use the distortion tools to put them into their final position. To finish off the part we're going to use the smoothing and the sculpting to give it a little bit more softness and blend. To begin, let's open a copy of Aspire. Let's start this example by clicking Open an existing file. We're going to click on the file Scroll Display Finished from within the Parchment project folder. Hit Open. As mentioned, this is a part that was created in another tutorial, so we're going to start with this and we're going to make some edits to it in order to create our finished part. First thing we're going to do is go into the Modeling tab, and I'm going to get rid of Scroll Top, just hit Delete and get rid of Scroll Bottom, so that we're essentially just left with the piece of paper in the middle. If we go to View, Tile the Windows Vertical, we can see that we've got a component which is just a thin 1/8 of an inch thick flat component that was created based on the vector that we've got here for the outline. What we need to do now is create the lines that are going to represent the points at which this paper has been folded over. So let's come over to the Drawing tab. I'm going to click on the Draw Polyline tool. I'm going to click roughly in the position you can see here and roughly up in the middle here. Right mouse click to finish that. I'm going to select it, hit N on the keyboard, hit B to make that into a Bezier span, select these two middle vectors and just drag those up in order to generate the first line. If I want to, I can edit that, drag it over slightly. Next I'm going to come back to the Draw Polyline tool. This time we're going to draw one across the corner here. Again, just going slightly past the edges. I can zoom in there, hit N on the keyboard, B for a Bezier span, drag those up. I'm not going to give that much curvature. Hit Escape, F on the keyboard to fit that. Back to the Polyline tool, and this time I'm going to come down to the bottom. I'm going to click across here. Right mouse click to finish, select that, hit N on the keyboard to go into Node Editing, B to turn that into a Bezier span, and again I'm just going to drag that in order to create the shape that I want for where this paper is going to be folded over. Hit Escape once more in order to go out of Node Editing. Next I'm going to take our original component and I'm going to split it using each of these lines we've drawn here. So if we come to the Modeling tab, I'm going to select that component, shift and select the line and click on the icon to split the component. That will split it into two pieces. I'm going to right mouse click on this and rename it and call it Top Left Corner. I'm going to select the main component again, shift and select this line here, click on the split icon again. Again we'll create two components now. I'm going to right mouse click, rename this one Top Right Corner, and then I'm going to select the other one, shift and select this bottom line, click on the split icon. That once more will create two components. Now I'm going to rename this middle one and call this Main Paper, and select the bottom one here, right mouse click, go to Rename and call this Bottom Fold. Next I'm going to create the shape as if these folds were rolling over and up onto the main page again, and we'll then add that shape to each of those pieces that we just split off before we go ahead and mirror them and put them into their final position. To create that shape, I'm going to use the 2-rail sweep, and what I need to do is come back to the drawing tab. I'm going to select the Draw Polyline tool, and I'm just going to zoom in here and click there, and then click here, hit space on that to complete that. I'm going to come over here, I'm going to click here, and here, hit space. I'm going to come down the bottom, zoom that so we can see it all, and I'm going to click across the bottom there just a little bit larger than the size of the paper. We'll hit F to fit that back in. Let's go up and say File, Save As now. We'll save this in the Parchment folder, and we'll call it Old Paper 1. So if you want to get to this stage, you should just go ahead and open that file, and you can see the vectors, the split components exactly as I have them. Next, I'm going to go across and click on the Create or Draw Ellipse function. I'm going to make a vector which is width 4 and height 0.5. Hit Create, Close. I'm going to zoom in on the middle where we've created that, select it, hit N for node editing. I'm going to hit D over each of the bottom spans to delete them. I'm going to hit L over this span here to turn it into a line. Then I'm going to click on this icon, this node here. I'm going to shift and select this node, and I'm going to hit X on the keyboard, and that will align the X values of that top and bottom node. And this shape is going to represent the shape of the fold coming up and over on the page. Now at the moment we want this fold to run from the inner line to the outer line, so that when we mirror it, it's going to be in the correct orientation. So let's go ahead now and create each of these additional shapes. I'm going to create the top left first. I'm going to select this vector. I'll zoom in a little with the mouse wheel, shift and select this vector, shift and select this vector, go into the 2-rail sweep, and I'm going to create a component that I'm going to call top left round. Just go ahead and hit apply. That's fine, and then I'm going to hit close on there. Hit F to fit this. Next I'm going to select this vector, shift and select this vector, shift and select this vector, 2-rail sweep. I'm going to call this top right round. Hit apply, close. And then I'm going to select this bottom vector, shift and select this vector, shift and select the cross section again, 2-rail sweep, and we'll call this bottom fold round, and hit apply, close. Now what I want to do is take each of those shapes I've just created and crop them back to the components that we split off before. So I'm going to take top left round and select that first. I'm then going to hold Control and select top left corner and come to this function here to essentially crop the first component to the second. That's done that. I'm going to select top right round, Control and select top right corner, click on the same icon. Then I'm going to select bottom fold round, Control and select bottom fold, click on the same icon, and then each one of those has been cropped back. Now what I want to do is combine each of those. So I'm going to say top left round, Control, top left corner, right mouse click and group. Top right round, hold Control, select top right corner, right mouse click and group. Bottom fold round, Control and bottom fold, right mouse click and group. And so now we've essentially got those three components, which are the split from the original outline plus this kind of rounded shape which is going to come up and roll over. And next what we're going to do is take each of those groups and we're going to mirror them over the part so that we can then start to look at how we're going to be able to combine these into the job. Let's go ahead now and go up to File, Save As, and we'll save this file, call it Old Paper 2, hit Save. So if you want to, you could open it and be at the same stage we're at here. Next, we're going to take each of these parts, each of these groups, and we're going to mirror them. So select the top one, go to Mirror, I'm going to click Bottom, select this one, click Bottom, select this one, click Top, close that. Now we're going to take each of those and use the distortion tools in order to rotate them into place and get the line to roughly or closely follow the original point that we decided would be sort of the point that the paper was being folded over. So now we're going to click on the top one of these and then come over to Distort Selected Objects. I want to choose the option for bounding box and hit Apply and OK, and that will lock the bounding box onto our part here. It's important to do that so that I get a reasonable orientation for my bounding box. If I started to rotate it before I went into the bounding box, then I would get an orientation that was less easy to edit. Now I'm just going to click on the transform object. I'm going to rotate this around, and what I want to do is try and get it to be roughly in position of where it was kind of folded over there. Might need to use the arrow keys to jog that around. I'm going to go back to the edit envelope here, and now what I'm going to do is come over this part here and go to B to be able to change this. If we hit F and just zoom in on this area, and what you want to do is basically take this and distort it so that that line starts to closely follow come in and go on the B for Bezier there and bend this in a little on the front. That will help the back. I just need to keep adjusting it. So that we've got the curvature closely matching that of what's below it, and we have some curvature on the top here so that we've got a part that appears to have been folded over. I'm going to hit F, I'm going to come over, hit Escape, and we'll select this one, click on Apply to go into the bounding box. It'll tell me it needs to be baked, which is fine. I'm going to click on Transform, I'm going to rotate this around, move that up into position. Again, just tweak that so it's in the right place. Go back to the edit envelope there. Make sure it's selected. Hit B over this side. Hit B over this side. Just expand that out. I'm happy with the way that looks. Hit F. I'm going to come down. Hit Escape to come out of the envelope mode. Click on this new one, hit Apply to select that, hit OK, transform the object. Once more, we'll rotate that using the corner piece there. Zoom in on this, What I may need to do is maximize the window to give me a little more workspace for this while we get it into its appropriate position. So I'm happy with that. We'll go back to Edit Envelope, go to B, hit B on this bottom part, orient the window where we need it to be, and then keep manipulating this as best as we can to match the curvature once again. So I'm happy with that. I can hit close or hit F, go view, tile the windows vertical so we can see what we've done with the part there. It's not looking too bad, but I would like to edit this so that maybe the corner comes over a little bit further and we get this sort of flowing a bit more around here. So I'm going to go back to Distort Selected Objects, click on Edit Envelope again. I'm actually going to drag that across there, come into here and hit B on this, and then we can just edit that in order to give that a little bit more shape as it comes across. And we are going to edit this a bit more once we actually come in, and we're going to smooth and blend these shapes out as well. So we just need to decide how we want that final part to look there. Just drag that down. If I'm happy with that, I hit close, hit F. We can see the whole object now. And what I'll do at this stage is go up to File and Save As, and we'll call this Old Paper 3. And so if you want to, you could open it at this stage and see what we've done so far. At this point, it's worth doing a little part maintenance. We can see we've started to get some long names due to grouping and baking. So I'm going to right mouse click, and we'll just rename this, get rid of those, select the next one, rename, just delete those, rename this bottom one and delete the suffixes there. So we're back to top left, top right and bottom fold. What I'm going to do now is take each of these grayscales, select them, right mouse click, say move to layer, and we'll actually put these on a new layer and call this Parchment Grey Scales. If you remember, this part started with the part where we'd created the ends of the scroll, so that's why we already have that layer information in there. Going to make the new layer visible and active, and what I'm going to do is go to the Drawing tab here, and I'm going to click in order to switch off the component grayscales layer. We'll actually rename that first though to call this construction vectors now, as that's where we've got those vectors that we use to construct this part. Now all our grayscales are on the Parchment Grayscales layer. Under the Modeling tab, I'm going to take all those selected components, and what I'm going to do is right mouse click and group them together. I'm then going to right mouse click and create a duplicate, and we're just going to switch off that, right mouse click that, rename it and call it Original Group. Now what we're able to do is take this, right mouse click, rename it and call it Parchment, and we can start to smooth and sculpt this and finish it off. So first I think it would be worth doing a little smoothing on this. So with those that component group selected, I'm going to apply the smoothing filter, which means that the software needs to bake those components together. I'm going to hit OK. I'm going to move the smoothing slider up probably about 1/3 of the way along here and hit OK. Next, what I want to do is go in with the sculpting tools and just add a little bit more shape into this, and again just smooth these and blend these a little bit more. So I'll maximize the 3D view, zoom in so that we have our focus on the part, make sure it's selected, click on the sculpting tool, and then what I want to do here is just kind of blend these edges in a little bit more so that they look more like the paper's flowing in here. So I'm going to go to the smudge, set the diameter probably around 60, strength a little lower, probably around 40, and just drag that shape out and into the top, and then just drag back. I'm going to set the strength a little higher, just drag from the low area into the high and just start to soften and adjust that edge a little. Can do the same on this corner here. We can drag this out and around using the same settings with the smudge, and also on this corner here I'm going to come and try and get this to kind of round that corner a little bit better as well. If we turn the strength down and up the diameter, we can kind of push in from the back here as well and soften up the back edge that we've got. Do the same here. Just try to give this a bit more of a natural folded feel to the paper. If you up the strength quite a lot, you can actually come into here and we can push from the low area into the higher area and actually change that shape as it comes around there, again to give it more of a feel of it bending around. Go to the smooth tool if we want, just soften up the edges by running around it. Just pressing, and you can see the cursor goes red, and I'm pressing down. When we're not, it goes blue. We can just smooth that end off, smooth in and around these pieces here. And then once more, if we want to add a little more character, go back to the smudge. Let's get the diameter reasonably large, strength reasonably high, and just very gently, you can see me press and push from the flat area into the higher area, and that's just allowing me to add a little more interesting shape into that edge. We could turn the diameter down if we want to continue the tears a little bit. If we wanted to, we could even sculpt a tear into this. If we up the strength, quite a small diameter, you can see me just drag there and add that in and hit keep and OK. And at this point in time, we can take a look at this. If we like the way that finished part looks, we'll just deselect it there and then come up to File, Save As, and we'll call this Old Paper 5. And hit save. Let's go ahead and just finish off this completely by resizing it. We'll select the component, go to Set Selected Object Size, going to make sure Link XY is unchecked. I'm going to put in a width of 14, actually let's make it 16, and a height of 22, and hit Apply. So we've scaled that up a little bit. And then what we're going to do is use this as a basis in the next tutorial to show you how we would go about machining this and add some decoration to turn it into a treasure map. But at this stage we'll just save this file now, File, Save As, and we'll call it Old Paper Finished. Hit save. That's in the Parchment project folder, and you could open that and take a look at the file at this stage if you wanted to. And that concludes this particular tutorial. So I'd like to do just a little more editing at this stage. What I want to do is give the effect of the small tears in the edge of the parchment. It's a little difficult with the grayscale here to see where the top edge of this part is, so I'm actually going to come to the Modeling tab, click on Create Vector Boundary from that selected component, and that allows me to see where that edge is. It's just purely for reference. Now I can click on the Drawing tab, click on Draw Polyline, and I'm going to come in here and just create a wedge just by clicking there. Hit Node Editing, B on the keyboard on both these spans, just drag that around a little. Click on that again, Node Editing, and just make sure we're not going to make that too wide. If I'm happy with the way that looks, I can select that component, shift and select that vector, come to the Modeling tab, just choose the option to clear area of selected component. It tells me it needs to be baked at this point, which is fine. I'm going to bake that. We can see we've just split that out there. If I wanted to, I could take that, select it twice, hit Control, drag it up here, turn this around, and use the same shape if we wanted to. Take this shape, shift and select this shape, do the same operation in order to cut that out of there. And then maybe we'd want to take that over to the other side here, rotate that around, go into the Node Editing if we wanted to and just change that slightly, select this shape, shift and select this shape, use the same function to crop out the shape where that vector is. Now we've added a couple of extra tears in there. Maybe to finish off we'll hit Control, copy that across and add another one in here, selecting that and cropping that out. We go up to File, Save As, and we'll save this as old paper 4 at this stage. And we're actually now ready to go ahead and take this and finish it off by just smoothing and sculpting these components together to give it the final natural flow that it would have between those folds and between the back part of the design.